Today's video is sponsored by Forever Pick, exotic wood guitar picks. Handmade one at a time in Chicago, Illinois, you can choose from a selection of exotic woods that will actually improve your guitar's tone. Take advantage of an exclusive 25% off coupon when you buy the full 6-pack at the link in the description. And remember, when you support my sponsors, you support this channel, and I sure appreciate it. Hey, how's it going, dudes? Brad the Guitologist here. Today's video, we're going to check out a couple of Glary ukuleles. That sounds like something you'd be interested in. Stick around. Okay, so Glary sent me these two ukuleles. One of them was sent a little bit earlier, which is this one here. They sent me this one at the same time they sent me the guitar that I recently reviewed. And they offered to send me a couple more guitars. They were like, hey, we want to send you something else. And my video did pretty well when I reviewed that thing, so I think they were eager to send me some other stuff. But this ukulele I actually got at the same time as that guitar, and I haven't had time to really look into it until now. This one over here, they wanted to send me another guitar, but I told them, hey, send me another ukulele instead, because I think everybody's pretty much reviewed most of the guitars, it seems like, that they have on their websites. I wasn't that interested in getting another guitar, but let's check out this first ukulele that they sent me and kind of refresh our memories on this thing. I did open it at the time, but I didn't really go too far into it. But if we look at this, I don't know, I think this might be a rosewood, actually, on the back and sides of this thing, because it sure looks rosewoodish to me. Okay, if we go on Glary's website here, we could see that it looks like the UK602 model that I have with the rosewood back and sides is sold out. But if we scroll up a little bit, we will see another model, a UK601, that purports to have cacao pineapple back and sides. And it's actually a lot cheaper. It's $42.99 instead of $55 for the one that I have. Still has rosewood fretboard and bridge, but yeah, see the cacao pineapple back and sides? Just has a real nice exotic look to the wood, which I really like. And you can see it here on the sides, just a really nice looking wood. Actually, I think I like it better than the rosewood even. And if it's not rosewood, it's got to be some kind of very, very close related species, very dark wood. We have a wood binding as well, right there on the side. It's kind of a veneer binding, and then we have I don't know what you call this stuff. It's like a faux abalone kind of inlay around the edge here. I'm not a big fan of this style of stuff, but you know, some people are. Some people do like it. The problem that I see is that none of it really is finished at all, or it doesn't appear to be finished at all. I mean, this looks really raw, and you can see, you know, there's been no grain filler used, and very little, if any, finish. And you can see the sanding marks that are kind of going contrary right there to the grain. It's almost like this was finished and sanded very, very little. So I mean, if that's something that you can look past, I mean, yeah, certainly this, you know, because they're so cheap, you're kind of getting something that if you want to finish this, you can, and that's probably what I'll end up doing with this, is finishing this myself. But you can see what I mean right here with the scratches that are going contrary to the direction of the grain. I mean, those really shouldn't be there in a finished instrument. It's almost like this thing was maybe even a factory reject or something that was kind of kicked out before it was completed. And right here around the rosette too, it just has a really unfinished kind of a feel. Almost like they would have, you know, routed some more of this out and done something different with this, had they had more time or something. You know what I mean? Do you see what I mean, though? It's like it's got a couple of scored lines, and then it has these really kind of cool, elaborate designs that are also scored into the wood, but they kind of just left at that and didn't do anything else with it. Which I suppose is fine if they had, you know, maybe painted them or something and then, you know, finished over it. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. But I mean, it's an inexpensive instrument. I guess what do I expect? But this does look like it's definitely spruce on the top. It's going to be kind of hard to see, I think, in this light. Really to get, there we go. Yeah, you can see the spruce on the top. But just lots of flaws, and like I said, not really finished at all. The spruce, I'm not sure if it's solid or not. Yeah, it sure does look solid, doesn't it? You see right there how the cross section of the top right there, you can see the spruce grain goes all the way through to the bottom, it appears. Here on the headstock we have what looks like an overlay of rosewood also. But again, you know, just no finishing effort at all. I mean, you can see all the, you know, grain marks and everything. This is just a really raw, unfinished instrument. And, you know, I'm sure, you know, that's part of probably the way that they're able to even offer it for sale at the kind of prices that they're offering. Because, I mean, it's one thing to build an electric guitar, but it's quite another thing to build an acoustic guitar, and this would fall under the category of basically like an acoustic guitar, obviously. But, yeah, we're going to tune this thing up and check it out. I'm also going to compare it to the one that's in this box. Let's go ahead and open this second one. Well, one major difference is that this one has tuners 4 to a side. It also has the glary logo on there. It's still unfinished, much like this other one. But you can see the difference here. See how this is definitely kind of a rosewood. I mean, that's unmistakably rosewood, I'd say. At least on the back, if not the sides as well. And that's not painted either. I mean, you can see the grain. That just screams to me rosewood. Now this one over here, this one looks more koa-ish. It just has a bit of a flamey aspect like koa would. See there? How it gets kind of an iridescent flame to it when you move it into the light. It's very reminiscent of koa. Now again, I don't know, I can't recall for sure what the website said that this was supposed to be, but that sure looks koa to me. I'm not sure on the wood on this neck on this one. It's definitely a lighter wood. This one's a darker, almost, this one's more mahogany-ish. But the thing about, you know, stuff that comes from Asia, a lot of this stuff will be of a species that's similar to the stuff that we know as rosewood or koa or mahogany or maple even, but it might not be those exact species, but you know, an Asian variant. Let's see. This one's kind of nice because it's got that cutaway. But I mean, honestly, how many times do you play up that high on a ukulele anyway? But it is kind of nice it's got that. Okay, this one is a model UK603. There's no fret sprout on this one. This one had some fret sprout. It's definitely got some fret sprout. So you can even hear it. Both sides. Again, that's not something that I can't repair, but you know, again, if you order one of these, definitely be prepared to do some finishing yourself. It's almost like they got so far in the process and then just kind of stopped and then slapped some strings on it and called it a day. So if you're expecting something that's a highly finished instrument that's, you know, really gloss or anything like that, then, you know, look elsewhere. But if you're okay with this kind of you know, less than perfect finish, and you may perhaps want to save a little bit of money and still get some good, decent woods. I mean, like I said, this thing, it feels well built. I mean, the bones are good. The braces seem like they're well intact. Everything is put together pretty well. I just think that, you know, if you came in here and just did some grain filler, did some sanding, did some finish on it, and then, you know, just basically finished it off, you would have a pretty good instrument there. This one, and maybe even decorate, you know, around the rosette there. Bust out your paintbrush or something and make that look nice. This one has no rosette. You can kind of tell what I mean, you know, just the unfinished kind of feel of it. Well, first of all, just because it's unfinished, but you see the edges of the bridge right there, how it's got some fraying to the wood. You know, it just feels unfinished. It just, like, you know, it just needed a lot more sanding. And right there where they cut out the sound hole, you can see there's some splintering to the wood around there as well on that spot. That just kind of jumps out at you because you're just not used to seeing that a lot of times on finished instruments. Yeah, I think this one looks to me like it's probably not a laminate. Like this top is one solid piece. Yeah, it's kind of jumping around on, but you see what I mean. It looks like it might be one solid piece there, not a laminate. So that's a plus. We have really nice, like I said, really nice woods on the back and sides. We have a really nice bit of marquetry here. That's not that's an inlaid bit of marquetry. That's not binding. In other words, you see how the back is one piece, and then but you've got also this marquetry here. You've also got it on the top as well, which is a nice touch. It's interesting because you know you've got these nice touches like this marquetry all the way around. You know, the cutaway, for instance. You've got it all the way around there, and it's fit pretty well. So the people who did that part of the job did a great job. But then it's just, you know, it's just unfinished. Which is a plus, actually, when you think about it, because, I mean, unfinished acoustic instruments are going to resonate better if they don't have a big choking, you know, layer of finish over the top, especially something that, with a body this small, like a ukulele. And these aren't soprano ukuleles, by the way. These are tenor ukuleles. And so, I mean, that's a plus in a way because it's going to sound better. So I will give it that. But you can see, I mean, you can see here, like, where they used, you know, super glue to put the nut in, which is, I mean, that nut slot is abysmal. Look at the nut. It's just, you know, once again, just kind of a sign of very lax, you know, finishing and fit. And then you've got the cloudiness of where they use super glue, and it just kind of, it probably wasn't, the super glue probably wasn't fully cured before they stuck it in the bag, maybe, or something. Like, that's how fast they built it. I do like this solid headstock. I mean, it's got a joint here, but I do like the feel of this headstock. It's nice and thick. It feels like, you know, it's going to stand up to some abuse. Nice fretboard, but at the same time, like I said, you know, just feels a bit unfinished, and it feels like when they fretted this, they just, I mean, definitely see how they just kind of crushed it in, these frets. That's way too much pressure when they fitted the frets in at the factory. Now, you know, if the frets are level, it will still be a playable instrument, but if the frets are not level as a result of having all been crushed in like that, then we may have problems we'll have to deal with as far as, you know, doing some fret work. I do like the kind of tree of life looking inlays here, which is pretty attractive on this model. But I would say this one, because of the lack of a cutaway, I mean, the bodies are so small to begin with, but the lack of the cutaway is probably going to make this one a little bit louder, I would say, if I had to guess. Yeah, let me tune these things off camera, come back to it, and we'll give them a test. I want to draw your attention to a couple of things in general about this particular example that I've got here. One, I don't know if you could see it, but the nut is actually misplaced. You can see it's been glued in wrong. There's more room over here on this side. You can see kind of the lack of finish on this edge of the fretboard as well, or lack of kind of completion. But then on this side, it's kind of sticking out too far. So this thing is cocked to one side too far. So that's one thing. Secondly, these tuners are not very good. You can, and I realize, you know, this is like plastic string. I don't even think these strings are nylon. I think they're just plastic. But, you know, I realize that you can tune these up and up and up, and you have to stretch the hell out of a new set of strings like this. I get it. You know, I've been playing for like 30 years, so I get how to tune an instrument. But these tuners actually seem to be slipping, which you don't see a whole lot. You know, you can pull on the string, and the tuner will actually kind of slip backwards a little bit from time to time. So there's a lot of play in there on that gear, which you don't see on a lot of nicer tuners. So the tuners are not really great. The nut's misplaced. Also, another pet peeve of mine is that the fact that you see how wide the fretboard is here at the body, and you see where the strings come, how far away from the end of the fretboard they are. Really, and then as you get up closer to the nut, you see they're closer to the edge of the fretboard up here by the nut. I would have liked to have seen the string spacing consistent with the fretboard so that it fanned out in this kind of manner, so that this string should be a consistent distance from the edge of the fretboard the whole way up. So that would mean you would have to have a different spacing down here, so that was a little bit wider. And what that would kind of tend to facilitate too is your ability to finger pick down here with a bit wider spacing. So it just give you more room if you're a finger picker like me. Strumming, it's not a huge deal. And it might even be a little easier strumming with it like this. But if you do any kind of finger picking, you would want that string spacing to be slightly wider and more consistent with the fretboard itself. So that's a pet peeve. One thing I don't like. Another thing I don't like, really don't like, is that you can't intonate this thing. I don't know what they've done with the bridge. I think they may have actually misplaced this bridge ever so slightly, and it's making it almost impossible to intonate this instrument. And I'll show you what I mean. Okay, let's tune it up. So if you want to tune one of these, you could use the trick that I use on guitar, and you can do a Black Sabbath's War Pig. So you can go, generals gathered in their masses, and that S is gonna be your E, or pretty close to it. So generals gathered in their masses, so right in there is going to be your E. So you can tune, and that's your second string that you're tuning right there. Okay, so if I've got my E, or close enough, I can go ahead and tune everything else to relative pitch. See, I'm in tune there, okay, right? But if I come up here to the octave, I have to bend this string in order to get that octave right there in tune, about that far. So So I have to do some manipulation or some vibrato or something to kind of mask the fact that this won't intonate. On the top string, it's even worse. Like if I tune to the 5th, okay, so those are in tune, open together. This one's way off. I have to actually bend this string way up in order to get this. If I fret anywhere on the top string, I have to bend it way upward to get to the correct note. Okay, listen to this. I have to bend it about that far to get the note correct. So, I mean, that's a pretty good distance off. Which what that means is, unfortunately, this bridge is not in the correct spot. So, for this to really be a playable instrument, this bridge needs to come off and needs to be moved that way. Probably about, I'd say maybe 1/8 of an inch, something like that, or less. Well, less than 1/8 of an inch, maybe a 1/16 of an inch, but definitely not placed correctly. So, you know, that's just another example of you get what you pay for. It would have been nice if they had spent a little more time on this instrument, because it could be a good instrument. It seems to be built well. It's got a lot of evidence of just handmade, like this. The heel here on the neck in particular just really looks like it's hand carved, handmade, like somebody actually sat and labored on that and made that right. And the body and everything is put together solidly. I feel like this is a solid instrument, but the problems lie in the details, and that's where the devil usually lies, is in the details. And on this instrument, unfortunately, if you're not somebody who's capable of doing luthier work yourself, this would be a lost cause. It would be money down the drain. But if you're like me and you're somebody who, you know, if you were thinking about possibly even building your own ukulele, just as a project, this would get you, you know, 90% of the way there toward having a built ukulele, but you could customize and finish it the way that you wanted, because it's pretty much raw wood. And you're going to have to, you know, you would have to do some sanding to get these, see these marks that are going this way? All the way down there? You can see them, I'm sure. So you would have to do something anyway to get all that stuff out. So you would sand this, sand the top, sand the whole thing, essentially, refinish it. But you'd have to really check your bridge, make sure you don't have to reposition your bridge, which I'm going to have to do on this. That might be the subject of another video. But this instrument, like I said, unfortunately is a lost cause as it sits. You can see also how far off of the fretboard these strings are. Like I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it or not, but they are too far really off the fretboard. Like back here, you have to press. If I fret a string, if I fret here at the first fret, you have to press a long way to get to this fret, and that's just way too much nut there. So the nut would have to be reslotted. I would actually replace it with a bone nut anyway, replace the saddle with a bone saddle. Finish it, you know, put some finish on it, maybe spray it some gloss nitrocellulose after, you know, doing some grain filler and all that stuff. Make it your own. You know, this is something you could definitely make your own. And I don't know how much they were charging for these, but I think it's like $50 or so, maybe something like that. So, you know, I look at this and I think, oh, could I have done this? Could I have built this thing up to this point for that price? And the answer is absolutely not, because $50 for me, that's about, what, maybe 45 minutes worth of work. So could I build this in 45 minutes? No. So if you're looking for a shortcut, like if you're, you know, if you're do-it-yourselfer and you want a project, this would be good for that. But yeah, if you're a beginner and you're wanting to learn ukulele, this is a skip. Now this one, as I was tuning it up, And this brings up another thing that I dislike about this design. I would have much preferred a wrap tail bridge instead of this type of bridge with a pin. Bridge pins on a ukulele, that's you're gonna come across a lot of ukulele strings that are just, it's just basically a knot in the string, and those don't really set too well underneath a bridge pin. It's really far better for ukulele strings to wrap just like you would a classical guitar. So this type of bridge would have been really more suitable, I feel, for a nicer ukulele than a pin bridge. Now, some people do pin bridges and they like this better, but for my personal taste, I would much rather have a wrap tail bridge like a classical than something like this on a tenor ukulele. The other thing is, just the fit and finish of this one. Look at the saddle there. They just kind of chopped off the edge of a piece of saddle, like plastic saddle, and just kind of left it raw. So when you hit your hand against that right there, it's just real sharp right there on the corner. They didn't try to round it or anything. It's just sort of real slapdash, and it's real high also. So the action's a bit high. So this could come down quite a lot. Now, it's not... Now this one has a problem with intonation also, but it's in the opposite direction. So I think this one might actually be solved somewhat by lowering the saddle and making this correct. But once again, this is another case of, if you're a beginner, you're looking to learn ukulele, this is not something you're going to be able to learn on out of the box. I've already discovered that. The intonation is so far off, the string height is so far off the fretboard up here, that it's actually throwing the intonation off when you fret the string up here. So, but that's way off on the intonation. So, yeah. Could I recommend either one of these out of the box for a beginner? Absolutely not. Could I recommend either one of these or both of these to somebody who wants to have something as a project? Yeah, I would say so, because for what you get and for the price, you're paying for somebody's labor for, this probably represents hours of multiple people's labor, and what are you paying, like 50 or 60 bucks, I think, for one of these? I'm not sure what this one is. I think this one's a little more expensive than the other one, but and it's, especially with the inlay and stuff on the fretboard that they put on this one, you're paying for somebody's labor, and what's that labor worth? It's worth probably, if it's worth more than what you're paying for the labor to get it to this point, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So if you're a do-it-yourselfer, that's about all I could recommend this for, as a do-it-yourselfer. And also, they're just they're in such a unfinished state. It just would have really been nice to see somebody, to see what they could produce if they actually finished this thing out and were trying to make a quality instrument. Like if they actually took the time and went through the steps to turn this ukulele into something that was really playable and close to high end. I would like to see one that they actually tried on, where they took the time to make it right. This one hasn't been made right, and neither has this one. So I can't really recommend either one of these ukuleles to beginners, unfortunately. So both of these would be a hard pass for me if I was recommending these for a beginner. But if you guys want something for a project, then yeah, check out the Glary website down below, and we'll see y'all later.